Hi, I'm Cameron Wilson and welcome to the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal podcast, where each episode we feature the projects and community initiatives that are breaking down isolation and generally improving life in rural Australia. This week, the attention is on tourism and how it can help ease the financial burden during a drought. Soon we'll take you to the tiny town of Eromanga, which is quickly becoming famous for its dinosaur and megafauna fossil finds. We'll be taking a look at the plans there to reinvigorate this traditionally agriculture-dependent economy. But let's start with an assessment of what drought actually does to small businesses in small towns. Reverend Jenny Coombes is with the Uniting Church. She's based in Longreach, and she's been looking at the results of a recent survey of how drought affects small businesses in rural areas.
It's been very apparent that every level of the community is being affected. Because the pastoralists don't have money to spend, that then affects all the businesses, and it's at every single level. So we go through what they need to buy for working on the farms. That becomes tighter and tighter. They just end up making do instead of replacing, and then any discretionary income just goes out the window very, very quickly. That then impacts on the employment of people. So businesses have been very loath to put anyone off. They've tried to distribute the load equally, so to speak, by reducing hours. But if someone leaves, then that person's not replaced. So the business owners themselves take on more and more hours. That impacts then on their well-being.
Yep.
On top of that, their income is drying up, so they're not able to support some of the community functions. And
so what that might be sponsorship of a sporting event or a cultural event, something like that?
Yeah, so where normally businesses would contribute happily to give prizes for all these different events, that's just becoming harder and harder for it to happen. And so you've got to look at other ways of supporting all of those things. Reverend
Jenny Coombes in Longreach. Now, Longreach is fortunate in some ways that it has a handful of landmark attractions like the Qantas Museum, and then, of course, there's the Stockman's Hall of Fame as well. Plus, there's an airport in Longreach. So the challenge has been for the other businesses in Longreach to also get a piece of this tourism market. Alan Smith runs numerous tours around Queensland, including a handful in and around Longreach. He's been talking to local graziers about ways they can incorporate tourism into their operations. Some simple things like hosting nights under the stars in a remote paddock. He says the role of tourism should not be underestimated, particularly during drought.
Our story is an education role, but in a fun way, and really we find that we're probably a little bit close to it out here. Our visitors sense the freedom of the outback and the spirit of the people, and it's actually quite a positive story, I think, tourism, because it brings new money into these communities and in its own way helps sustain some of the services and facilities that everyone enjoys.
Tell me about the business you run.
So I run Outback Aussie Tours. It's a husband and wife operation with some key employees. We actually run a boat cruise business, the MV Longreach Explorer. We have a product called a Drover's Sunset Cruise, which packages up sunset on the water with sunset nibbles and watching the sun go down and just stopping people and bringing back that old-fashioned conversation. And then there's wildlife encounters with the turtles coming out and that sort of thing, and then following the afterglow down to the stars come out, and then finishing that around a campfire with an entertainer and round tables, black linen, crockery, cutlery. And just because you're in the outback doesn't mean you can't do it really well. And that's just that side of it. But we also run tours from Cape York to Cameron's Corner and packages around Longreach and Winton.
How many people come to Longreach thinking they'll do a river cruise?
I would say 60 to 70% of the people who book on our boat cruise might be 48 to 24 hours before. The numbers start to rise dramatically, which is interesting for catering and staffing and those sorts of things. But we do it. We've got a great system that works, and so do the other people in the business. So not many people know exactly what's out here. So we have a massive marketing or consistency of marketing messages to tell the story about drought, to tell the stories about tourism and what's available to really enjoy this country.
What do you need here in Longreach to help to make a difference?
I think there's short and long-term solutions for that. I mean, to get more money in these economies and keep those businesses open and keep a vibrant community and keep the confidence and the pride will be a positive thing. But in the long term, we do need capacity building. We do need education and health and all those things improved, like we know too much about by living out here. But I think by people working together, I think we can do those things. But what's good about when things are tough is people start to do a bit of critical thinking. And that's what's happening through this drought, has happened through the last drought. In the 50s and 60s, when the wool price was good and then went crook, things got really tough. And people had to diversify, and the message is things will never be the same, but how can we make them better by looking forward positively?
Alan Smith, who's a tourism operator based in Longreach. This is the FRRR podcast. I'm Cameron Wilson, and in this episode, it's all about drought and tourism, how some towns are at least offsetting part of the economic pain by attracting more and more visitors. So we've just been hearing about the experience in Longreach, but there are other examples nearby too, of towns that have developed a lucrative tourism enterprise. Winton's an obvious one. The Walsing Matilda Centre there has broadened the economic base since it opened in the mid-1990s. Winton's community leaders now have to overcome the challenge of fire earlier this year that destroyed part of the centre and part of its collection. That's a challenge that a grant from the FRRR is assisting with. There are also stories of other outback towns, like Julia Creek for instance, that don't necessarily have a standout local attraction, so instead have tried running events and worked on building a strong reputation for hospitality. They've focused on better service and even getting a group of locals to cook for tourists who stay at the local campground. They then share some Julia Creek history over dinner. It's a strategy that seems to be working. One of the more ambitious attempts to generate a thriving tourism industry is taking place right now at Eromanga. It's a tiny place, but the plan there is to attract visitors from all around the world. Attract them with a natural history museum which will showcase the unique dinosaur fossils found in the area. That sound you can hear now, that's fossil restoration work taking place, and that's thanks in part to an FRRR grant. Stuart Mackenzie is the chairman of the Outback Gondwana Foundation, the group that's overseeing the development of the museum.
So this is the first stage of the Natural History Museum. It's certainly, our vision is it'll become a major tourist attraction for this region, but importantly, and probably our core function, is to do the research and all the scientific preparation of the material, the analysis, and allow the true scientific story to be told, basically, of the fossils from this region.
Okay, so where are you at the moment with realising that idea?
Well, this building's just been completed. We're only just setting it up, still setting it up. We'll be open to the public in the next few months, and that will sort of get, Australian public the opportunity to actually come out and see this material, and that's and then we've got to build from there. So there's a lot of massive amount of fossils that we have to prepare over the next few years. Our whole sort of focus as a shire and as a region in the remote parts of Australia is to diversify our economies. We used to survive completely on agriculture. We have a pretty successful oil and gas resources industry out here, which is also critical. But tourism is the great opportunity for us. There's no doubt about that. And the great thing about tourism too, you have to sell yourself to be successful at it. So as a community, and in the process of doing that, you're actually sort of boosting your own self-esteem and own confidence. And it's a really positive industry to see develop. So that will certainly add to it.
Stuart Mackenzie. The hope is that the facility will become one of the biggest tourist attractions in the region, bringing in more investment, more employment and offering social benefits too. So time will tell just how successful it is. The next 5 years are considered critical. But in the meantime, the community is already benefiting. Volunteers are helping prepare the bones for the museum, which has been a real benefit and a welcome distraction during drought. Gemma Murray is one of those volunteers.
I think longer term it'll be a great benefit to the community. Immediately it's provided opportunities for all of us as volunteers to come in and help and be involved. once the museum's open to the public, I suspect that during the tourist season out here that we will have a lot of visitors, and then, of course, as that increases, there'll be a lot of flow-on benefit to the community from people staying and then telling other people, and hopefully more people coming and telling other people.
Does Eromanga need that diversity, that other option?
That the township does. The township is very small and very isolated and remote, as you can see. The pastoral industry, as most of us are involved in, has had 15, 20 years of some very poor seasons, and there's no other industry in Eromanga that provides a business turnover or investment that will bring further development to the community.
Can you measure how important something like this has been during the years of drought?
It's been a great mental change of space and capacity for us all to be able to focus on something that's not just property related, drought related, poor stock related, to actually have that ability to then do something else, have another interest besides just what's going on at home, and the opportunity to be able to truly look at your situation and not feel so completely overwhelmed by it at times.
So it's quite profound then, the effect.
Yeah. You can come here and be locked in a room, and the day-to-day stresses of what's going on at home aren't here. So you're not having to deal with them by facing them. They're here. You have that mental change of space, I assume, to be able to learn to cope, to devise other plans.
Gemma Murray, a volunteer at the Eromanga Natural History Museum. You can see more about that museum on the FRRR website. Well, that's the podcast for today. Our next edition, we'll be talking about ecological and conservation projects, how those can do a really good job of bringing communities together during tough times. So join me next time for that. I'm Cameron Wilson. I'll catch you again soon.